Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marion Bay, and as you know, I am the host of television. And as you also know, I'm going to say that word again. I'm so excited. And I'm so excited because I have another powerful brother, Professor Muhammad. He's going to introduce himself to you. But I want to say that I had to bring this brother back on because he's talking about something that is so important, and that is the knowledge of yourself, your history, knowing who you are, regardless of who you are, where you came from. Everyone should know their history. Brother Muhammad and I, we have worked together in so many activities, and the activities were always dealing with education and history. So today, he is going to talk about the history and the things that we need to do in order to know ourselves. Professor Muhammad, I'm saying Professor Muhammad because Dr. Muhammad, because you have earned everything. And you have always been an inspiration to me, especially when I first met you, was when we had the Math Academy.
Yes.
And I think I met you also through through Brother Charles Gray from the Nairi Institute.
That's correct.
I hear some noise or whatever. Is there something that's on? Somebody is talking or something? So, yeah, okay. See, so I want the audience to know that I have no problems with interrupting things when it's interrupting what we're doing. So we're good, okay?
Especially when these are so dire and critical times for our people.
Exactly.
You know, we have to be focused.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I know how focused you are.
Thank you, Miriam.
Because you did an outstanding job at the Math Academy. And the students loved you while you were there. You worked at UMD&J here in the city of Newark.
That's correct.
So I want you just to briefly introduce yourself, and then we're going to get into all the work that you're going to be doing and have been doing.
Very well. My name is Abdul Rahman Muhammad. I am a scientist. I am a historian. I'm an educator, and I'm a published author as well. You know, and the main scope of my work is to bring back to life the bonds, the black bonds that unites me with my ancestors. I think that the only thing that is important in the study of history is to know your ancestors. Right. If you don't know your ancestors, you cannot know yourself. Right. And this is very important for we, the descendants of formerly enslaved Africans who were kidnapped, captured, shipped, and disembarked to the seaports of Newport and Richmond and Boston and Providence and South Carolina, where I came from. And we were brought here solely for two purposes: to serve the people who brought us here and to procure wealth for them. Right. And during this horrific process of being enslaved for 400 years, we lost our history, we lost our culture, our historical memory was completely erased, and we were made into a new people because we were psychologically engineered to being a Negro, a nigger, a colored man, a shine, a coon. And even today, we're still suffering from that psychological trauma. And we are cognitively disconnected from who we are and where we came from and where we need to go. And our condition was so dire then, and it is today, it hasn't changed. It was so dire that even God had to come and raise up someone and give knowledge to that person who could have sufficient knowledge to educate us with the knowledge of self. And I, like you and many others, heard those teachings very young. So myself, as a young boy, I heard those teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and that gave me the knowledge of self. So once I began to discover and rediscover who I am, everything that I've tried to do, I have tried to build it around gaining the knowledge of self. And the knowledge of self first is to have history of the black nation, history of the history of civilization, knowledge of the universe, which means that you must understand all of the sciences, not just chemistry and physics and biology, okay, and astronomy, but you must know mathematics, you must know languages, you must know psychology, you see, and even religion. And you put all of those things together and you seek to find your place in the universe.
Right.
Yes.
And see, I think all of that is so important. In my book that I read, that I have written, which is Broken Spirit, Let It Go So You Can Grow.
Oh, wow.
And
I have to get a copy of that.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you. And it deals, I have a chapter in there that deals with education and the knowledge of self and
Yes.
why that is so important. Because I think, I'm a former school board member and
Right.
president for the Newark Public Schools. And I just think it's so important that all children understand who they are, where they came from, and what their contributions were to the world.
Right.
And I believe that once they understand that, they become a better expression of what the Creator wanted us to be.
Absolutely.
But when that is stolen from you, and it takes away a part of who you are.
Absolutely.
And here in the state of New Jersey, we have the act is called the Amistad Act.
I'm familiar with that.
Okay, and what that act says is that all schools in the state of New Jersey is supposed to teach Black history.
Yes.
It's like, this is what you're supposed to teach.
Right.
History, because we're taught everybody else's history.
Correct.
But we need to know our history, and not for us to need to know it for ourselves, but everybody needs to know the history.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, of course. I think, we as a people, Sister Miriam, we've come to a crossroad, and we have to ask ourselves, how much are we going to continue to give and get nothing in return? You understand? All of the scientists throughout the world, they have come to agree that Africa is the cradle of humanity. Okay, it is not scientifically possible that someone can be born in an area with the latitude of Kenya or Ethiopia, and that being not be highly melanated,
right.
That being not have pigment,
right.
Because that being would have to have a physiology of an African. Because if someone were born in the region of Ethiopia or Kenya and did not have melanin, he or she would be doomed in their quest to survive. So we can conclude that the first Homo sapiens sapiens, the first people to populate Earth, were Black people. And
that's been proven.
That's been proven.
Right.
When I was a young student in college, well, even before that, I was in the 10th grade growing up in South Carolina, and it was the 10th grade world history class. There was a history teacher. She was relatively young, and she said that all of the scientists coming out of anthropology and human paleontology, they said that African people were the first people of the earth. But she never told me or told the class who was the researcher or what kind of findings he discovered. And then when I went away to go to college in Colorado, I was in a biology class, and a professor basically said the same thing, that Black people, African people, are the first people of the earth. And then later in 1973, at the University of Colorado, I was fortunate enough to hear the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And he spoke in Boulder, Colorado, and he said that there was a researcher by the name of Dr. Louis Leakey. Dr. Leakey's father was an evangelist who came to Kenya to Christianize the Kikuyu people. He lived in a hut, he grew up in that hut, and he learned how to speak the Kikuyu language. And then when he became of age, he went back to Oxford University in England, and he studied human paleontology. And he came back to Kenya, and he started doing research near Lake Victoria in the Olduvai Gorge, okay, and at Lake Victoria. And he found the bones of a man that he called Zinjanthropus. In Arabic, the word Zinj comes from the word Zanj, which means black. And in Latin, the word anthros means man. So that was the bones of a Black man that he discovered.
Could you ask them to take that down for me, please? The brothers? Yeah. Just because I hear you, yes. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. He found the bones of a man, as I was saying, and he called that Zinjanthropus. And you put those two words together, it means Black man. So he thus came up with a concept called the Monogenetic Theory, which essentially says that from the genes of one man came the genes of all men.
Okay.
And so from Africa, those first Homo sapiens sapiens that were living in Kenya, Ethiopia and Kenya, they migrated to the Nile Valley, and they evolved all along the Nile Valley. And then they migrated into Asia, the first people of China, the first people of India and Japan, the first people of the South Pacific, even into Antarctica, okay? Even in the Americas, in North and South America and Central America are black. In the South Pacific, the Aborigines of Australia, some of them are black, but they have brunette hair and blonde hair.
I need you to stop right there. You know what I'm getting ready to say, right?
Yes.
And every time you say that, I say, the next time Professor Muhammad comes, I got you. You got to bring that picture here,
Right.
you know, to show, so the audience can see.
Yeah, they need to see that, yeah.
You told us in a class that there were black people with blonde hair and blue eyes.
Yes.
So.
And Miriam, how long ago was that?
Oh God, that was like over like 15 years or so.
More than 20 years ago. Yeah. More than 20. In fact, you know, I was very fortunate because I was a student. I studied abroad in Senegal. And now that you mentioned that, I have to bring this out. When I was a student at Denver University, the father of Condoleezza Rice, Dr. John Rice, was one of the vice chancellors there.
Okay.
So while I was in undergraduate school, I wrote a research proposal for African American students to go and study abroad. And Dr. Rice supported me. He let me use his office to do all of the correspondence. I wrote 16 universities in Africa, but only one respondent, and that was the University of Nairobi, which was in Kenya. And after we got everything together, all of the students, the African-American students, they didn't want to go. And I couldn't fault them. They said, well, we got to work and make money during the summer. Right. But Dr. Rice, he said he would pay my way, you know. But I told him, I said, I wanted this to be a collective group trip, you know. And I said, if I go to summer school and finish my organic chemistry and I can take physical chemistry in the fall, in the spring, I can graduate. And so that's what I did. And so I came to Rutgers and I started doing my PhD at Rutgers. But when I was at Rutgers, I met a brother who's a pediatrician now in Brooklyn. He had studied at Cornell and he studied with James Spady, who's a historian, a writer, a real deep brother. And he had written a contrast comparison between Sheikh Anta Diop and Dr. Freddie X. Thomas, who was a student of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Many people don't know about him, but both of them were multidisciplinarians.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, didn't you say that you met Dr. Sheikh?
Yes. I met Sheikh Anta. I met Sheikh Anta at the University of Dakar, and then they changed the name of it when he died to the University of Sheikh Anta Diop.
Okay.
And my goal was, when I met Sheikh Anta, I was very young and I had studied his work. And when I studied his work, I knew I had to leave Rutgers and I had to go to Africa. You know, because during that time, you know, it was in the late 70s, in the early 80s, the Nation of Islam had fallen, you know, and we went through that period. So the question of identity, many people who had been given a very strong and cohesive cultural identity, they began to commit moral suicide.
Okay.
You understand?
So let's get back to a dark-skinned person,
okay,
with blue eyes, and blonde hair.
Okay,
because some people think that cannot happen.
Yes.
So why does that happen?
Well, that happens because
there was no
miscegenation, no
in it
at all. See,
right.
What you have to know, and I'll give you this information. In 1987, there was a professor at the University of California, Berkeley, by the name of Alan Wilson. What he did, he took placentas, 139 placentas from women all over the world, and he sequenced those placentas to see what was the DNA code, okay? And in this study, he showed that the mother of all of those women who participated in that study existed in Botswana 250,000 years ago.